Financial Times. Its headline: Le Pen's presidential hopes shattered by five-year ban on running for office. Do stay with us. We'll be right back.
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club.
4 more years!
Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
You are watching the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages of the newspapers as they come into us. It's time to see what's making the headlines with The Sun's political editor, Harry Cole, and The Guardian's political editor, Pippa Carrà. They'll be with us from now until just before midnight. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. We're starting with the Financial Times, which goes with today's news from France. The headline: Le Pen's presidential hopes shattered by five-year ban on running for office. Pippa's paper, The Guardian, also leads on that story, and Le Pen's angry reaction to the ban. With massive US trade tariffs expected to hit the UK on Wednesday, The Telegraph says hopes of an eventual trade deal could hang on the issue of free speech and the case of an anti-abortion campaigner awaiting a trial verdict this week. Keir Starmer's admission that tariffs will hit the UK is the lead story in The Times. The star launches into Donald Trump, meanwhile, over his ambitions for a third term and the effect of tariffs on world markets, while the UK apparently keeps sucking up to him. Writing in The Eye, Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner tries to reassure UK bosses that her new plans for workers' rights will help, not hinder, the economy. Migration is the top story in Harry's paper, The Sun, which reports that migrants are boasting on social media about the money they're getting, while bills paid by British people are rocketing again. The Express tells us illegal migrant arrivals in the UK are set to hit another record high. The Mail reports on a row over what it says is police guidance, which will lead to a two-tier policing system when it comes to race. The Metro leads with a story that Virginia Giuffre, the woman accusing Prince Andrew of sexual assault, an allegation he's always denied, says she's been given just 4 days to live after a road accident. And the Mirror reports on the impending bankruptcy of paedophile former pop star Gary Glitter. And we are joined tonight by Harry Cole and Pippa Crerar. Welcome to you both. Let's start with the Times front page and these looming tariffs to be imposed by Donald Trump. Wednesday is D-Day, but the suggestion in this piece that the Office for Budget Responsibility is saying that any tariffs would hit the UK economy, would take a 0.6% hit to GDP, and Downing Street almost accepting that this is going to come to pass.
Yes, I mean, this is one of the underlying problems of all of this. Donald Trump obviously has said that he is going to impose global tariffs. He wants them to be universal, so they've got a big bang, a big impact right across the board. And Britain's not alone amongst countries that have been trying to negotiate a sort of a exemption on that. And they have been, for some weeks now, since I think Harry and I were in the States, in Washington, with Keir Starmer when they kicked off those talks between officials on a trade deal which they hoped would be reached before this point so that Britain could be exempt from these tariffs. It doesn't now look like that's going to be the case. We had suggestions, gradually creeping suggestions over the weekend and into this week from officials and from ministers privately that they expected the tariffs to be imposed and to have to speed up the trade talks at the same time so that they didn't hit for too long. And then eventually today Downing Street has come out and said, yes, we expect to be hit by them on Wednesday. And as the Times points out, one of the impacts of that, of course, will be that it could potentially hit GDP quite substantially. The Times talks about a 0.6%, but I think it could go up to 1% of GDP as well, which is tens of billions worth of pounds, far outweighing the actually quite slim fiscal headroom that Rachel Reeves managed to build back up again. I think that's about £9.9 billion, and potentially, therefore, putting her under further pressure to raise taxes in the autumn budget. So there'll be an impact on trade, obviously an impact on the broader economy, but also potentially on our fiscal situation and the fact that the government's going to have to step up again and fill some of those gaps.
Yeah, and that prediction is that that fiscal headroom would be completely wiped out. The figure that the OBR, again, is talking about is equivalent to £18 billion.
Yeah, I mean, the 0.6 figure, if you drill down in the small print, is if we retaliated with tariffs of our own. We already put 10% tariffs on things like US cars, and so Donald Trump's saying, well, we're going to put that up to 25%, and he sort of cites VAT, which obviously is on all goods in this country, as a tariff in all but name, which most economists will tell you that's nonsense because it's applied to all goods rather than just imported goods. But he considers, value-added tax as a tariff, and paid in a different way rather than on arrival, it's paid on purchase. Behind the scenes, there's, as Pippa says, there's been this great sort of rush that hasn't gone very well, it seems, to try and get this deal over the line. It's not a trade deal that a vast sweeping one. The NHS, for example, farming, lots of goods are off the table. It's mostly focused on tech and tech and services, which is basically where we do most of our business with the United States, as it is. There's a phone call on Sunday night, which we're reporting tomorrow, between Donald Trump and Keir Starmer. I understand Keir Starmer made the approach to call Donald Trump and invite him to the UK in June. This isn't the big state visit. This is come in June and sign this deal and was no resolution, was how it was diplomatically put. Was how it was diplomatically put by one source when I spoke to earlier, which was no resolution, was very much firmly no dice. So the sort of last-ditch attempt by Starmer to directly go to Trump and say, look, come on, let's do this deal, rather than was rebuffed. And it doesn't sound like he's going to be coming in June. I think it'll be coming later in the year if he does come. It means that, hence we can see, as I said at 11 o'clock this morning at our lobby briefing, tariffs are on.
Quiet resignation.
Yeah, well, not that quiet. Yeah.
To the Telegraph, Pippa, in a similar story, well, the same story, but a complication, an added element. Headline there, Trump, no free trade without free speech. And this is in relation to a domestic case. Explain this.
Yeah, so they are linking free speech and the US position on free speech with trade. Now, as far as I can see, Donald Trump's administration, yes, it's unpredictable, but their focus is going to be what the States can get economically out of any arrangement with the UK. But they also feel very strongly, particularly J.D. Vance, the Vice President, about what he regards as European attitudes to free speech. And you remember the Munich conference, the security conference, where he came and he gave that a speech suggesting that Europe's biggest threat was from within, that it was retreating from European values and that they were in danger of ignoring voter concerns on migration and free speech. And in the past, he has mentioned anti-abortion campaigners in the UK as an example of this. And what we have here is a woman, Livia Tosici-Bolt, who was prosecuted for holding a sign near a Bournemouth abortion clinic reading, "Here to talk if you want to." Now, of course, buffer zones were brought in by Labour, I think it was in October, were introduced across England and Wales to prevent activists from demonstrating within 150 metres of abortion clinics. Because it put women under in very stressful situations under what they felt was undue pressure. And it was a promise that they had made at the election, and they obviously wanted to bring that in. And what we're seeing here is this kind of like lumping together these two issues. It is interesting that the US State Department has flagged, unusually, I think.
Yeah, I can't remember a statement
we're seeing channels, US official government channels, coming out with all sorts of different things on all sorts of different subjects. And here the State Department, which is their version of the Foreign Office, basically suggesting that they're concerned about freedom of expression in the UK. Whether that is likely to be linked to trade, I think it's probably unlikely, and certainly from the UK perspective, they're saying that they don't think that enhancing our economic engagement that's beneficial for both countries is contingent on this particular issue.
It is astonishing, though. I mean, if you read that statement that the State Department put out tonight and the Telegraph picked up on, we're concerned about freedom of expression in the UK. This is the sort of statement that you read in diplomatic circles about Belarus or Russia or Iran. If they're using the language of, it's quite heavy diplomatic language. It's quite couched in the fact that, they're not just going to come out and say it. But the very fact they're even putting out statements, this is meant to be one of our closest, if not our closest ally, basically raising the flag and saying we are very worried about our friend. And it is extraordinary, regardless of how the Telegraph have packaged this up, which I think is a little bit, they sort of lumped it all together. Clunky. That's a very good way of putting it. But I think, the statement itself could have easily led the page.
But also, let's not forget that J.D. Vance is a Christian, and a fundamentalist Christian, really, and is against abortion. That we've seen abortion rights rolled back in the States under the Trump presidency, and we are seeing it being rolled back. And then, of course, the British public have a very different view from many people in the States. It's a big divisive issue politically, their abortion. It was credited during the midterms. It's not a big issue here politically, but that's partly because overwhelmingly the vast majority of people support women's right to choose.
Let's look at the FT also with tariffs, but the effect that they're having, or the prospect of them having on the stock market.
Yeah, this is if Donald Trump does what Donald Trump has occasionally done before. Remember roll back 2 months ago, just at the beginning of the administration, where he came out and said, I'm going to put 25% tariffs on China and 10% on Mexico and 10% on Canada or whatever it was. And then actually he didn't. And I wonder whether Liberation Day, as he calls it on Wednesday for the Americans, wonder whether there might be some surprises there. It actually doesn't go as far as he threatened. But the problem is, as the FT point out, is it doesn't matter if he does that. He's already wiped off 4% of various companies, like sort of international car companies are getting absolutely hammered, across the world in the stock exchange, and then you've got to remember that the guy, the first buddy of the United States, Elon Musk, is a car producer. So you wonder whether to wonder whether whether you're trying to wipe off.
But you're right that
money
you
off the
can
competition.
sort of bring tariffs in the morning and they're out.
Yeah, I mean the most amazing thing about the
we shall see. We're going to have to leave
Oh
it there
no!
because
All
of
right,
time.
a really good point. Next time.
You'll have more time. Do stay with us. Coming up, we'll be discussing the two-tier justice row, headlining on the front page of tomorrow's Daily Mail. Do stay with us.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling. War, unrest, revolutions.
It's not his country, it's ours.
They have succeeded for the first time in their country's history in removing a leader from power.
No freedom!
Sky News, the full story first. There was fighting here, but there's clearly now a lull, and they're using it to bring up more ammunition. This is a mass exodus in which Russia is hemorrhaging some of its brightest and its best. According to the local weather channel, there have been more than 2,500 lightning strikes and flash flooding, all on top of this week's lethal tornado. What stays with you most in this job is some of the people you meet. What is your worst fear about what the Russians want to do to the children?
They're just boosting demographics by stealing young people.
Would you like to take the opportunity, Mr. President, on Sky News to invite Barack Obama to come here? Mr. Trump, are you running for president? Can you confirm it?
We're going to take a look, a very serious look.
On that day, we saw your fighters killing women, killing children. Was that a mistake? Did you go too far? You couldn't control your fighters? The full force of the state is being used to crush any protest. Free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in. Another alarm. The mood here is jittery and nervous. We're seeing the world get more and more divided, and it's our job to try to make sense of it all.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
We're rolling.
Welcome to the world.
Our new podcast, starting now. It's very exciting. Every week we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. Still with me, Harry and Pippa. Let's have a look at the Mail front page first of all. And this story regarding what's being dubbed two-tier policing. Official report by the Chief Constable tells officers racial equity does not mean treating everyone the same.
I mean, so this has all been kicked off really by the Sentencing Council a couple of weeks ago putting out new guidance on what to do about disparities with ethnic minorities and sentencing within the system, and used quite I think, as Pippa described it on a previous media round we did earlier, a very blunt instrument of sort of blanket fix to try and sort of get that inequality out of the system that has clearly gone wrong, because the government has basically said they're going to change the law to stop the Sentencing Council doing it, and tonight the Sentencing Council have backed down after about 3 weeks of standing firm. Now this is a new row. This is another report, and this is guidance for police officers who have been told directly and to treat black and white suspects differently, and racial equality does not mean treating everyone the same or being colourblind. Now, I think if you'd ask most readers and most punters what racial equality does mean, it would mean treating everyone the same and being colourblind. So another row. So Robert Jenrick, the Tory Shadow Justice Secretary, I think he is, Shadow Justice Secretary, one-time leadership contender, desperate to be considered a future leadership contender again, is on a bit of a rampage here, because he's found another example which he sort of dug out as, and I suspect this one is probably going to head to a similar route, because I think when you see it there in print that's the guidance that coppers are given, I think most fair-minded people, members of the public, are going to think that's wrong. And, you know,
I guess we're not seeing it in its entirety. We've just sort of picked out a couple.
No, but I mean, I read the document earlier, and it is quite stark. It is. You do think, oh, hang on, is this what you're actually being told to do? To literally treat different people? Police are being told to treat different suspects in a different way based on the colour of their skin, when you'd think it'd be the exact opposite.
Yeah.
So it will.
Describing it as disgraceful. Just because of time, can we move on to the Guardian? And a furious Marine Le Pen, defiant after the ruling against her today.
Yeah, so this is her reaction. The French right-wing leader, far-right leader of the National Rally Party, she was found guilty and sentenced today by French court for embezzlement of European Union funds. And she, as part of her sentencing, she was banned from standing for public office for 5 years, which of course would take us to the next French presidential election, which she was widely expected to stand in, and to certainly be in the last two in that contest, and potentially even, given the rise of right-wing populism across Europe, and the sort of the lack of faith that's been directed at towards Emmanuel Macron and his sort of centrists in particular, could end up winning. And I think what's happened here is that you've seen a whole load of right-wing leaders across Europe, across the globe actually, speaking out in her defence. Elon Musk in the States, Matteo Silvio, the deputy PM, or PM in Italy, Viktor Orban saying "Je suis marine." The Kremlin spokesman in Moscow. A really interesting bunch of characters all coming out in her defence. And I think what this has the danger to do, because it's not just people on the right that are condemning it, there's some on the left as well. It's in danger of making her a martyr. And the suggestion is that amidst this febrile political atmosphere anyway, that people are sort of no longer seeing due legal process in that light, and we've had lots of talk about lawfare and whether the judicial process has been used for political reasons, and that's a really increase her popularity and a very worrying undermining of the legal system.
Pippa and Harry must leave it there. Thank you very much. See you at the top of the 11. Let's take a look at the weather for you now.
A bright start and always a warm welcome. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Well, it'll be mostly fine, dry and settled this week, with plenty of warm sunshine by day, but clear skies mean it'll turn chilly overnight. There'll be a mostly clear, chilly start tomorrow, with a patchy frost or ground frost likely in parts of the countryside, but there'll be some misty low cloud and fog over some southeastern and northeastern parts. It'll be quite breezy in the west and far south. The morning will see early mist, fog and low cloud burning off quite rapidly. Let's take you straight to the White House this evening, where Donald Trump is signing some executive orders, scheduled to sign executive orders regarding ticket scalping, that sort of ticket touts in American parlance.